These reflections are meant for postgrads, PhD students, master students, and young colleagues. It's just some advice born of my experience as an academic. First of all, I want to talk about why do a PhD? Because it's a question. Some people want to do a PhD because their mom is absolutely mad about it. She wants to be called Mama Doc, you know? So this is not a reason to do a PhD. At a point in my life, I had a choice. I was in France, and I could either take the path of teaching in higher school and then in lower university, or the path of research. I was not too sure, I guess, but I was on a scholarship, government scholarship, and so this was leading me to choose teaching, because PhD is a long affair. But something happened, God intervened in my path, on my path, and eventually I just dropped the preparation for, competitive exams for teaching, and then chose instead the path of research and PhD. And I want to tell you that this has an implication for life, because if you choose a PhD, the jobs you'll be suited for are not as many as if you had decided to become a teacher. If you are a teacher, you can teach absolutely anywhere there is a school. If you are a researcher, it will be a different thing. So you have to think. Also, embarking on a master is just like maybe 1 year, but a PhD is long. Minimum 3 years. I know someone that has been on a PhD for probably next to 10 years. So you have to think, how do you see your life developing? Especially if you're a girl. Do you want to combine marriage and PhD research? Or how do you see yourself? Now, I'm not talking of science, because science is different. And I don't have the capacity to discuss that. One of our daughters is a scientist. She did a PhD. So I've seen it firsthand, but it was very different from my own experience. What I'm talking about is a PhD in arts or social sciences, where you deal with books or online stuff. And, terrain, that is field work. Then you have to choose a topic. And that is the first hurdle. And I want to advise you, go for what you really care for. Don't do a PhD on X, Y, or Z because your potential supervisor or another leading lecturer advises you on. I know when I was in final year undergrad, we were attending one class that was on Renaissance literature. And the lecturer was lovely. He had these kind of blue eyes that were sparkling. And he was saying, you're welcome if you come to do it with me. Renaissance is fantastic. I really loved him. But Renaissance was not my heartbeat. So I didn't do it. And everybody would try to woo you. At the time I did my PhD, I wanted to study oral literature. And at that time, nobody was doing it in the early 70s, in fact, late 60s. So I started visiting lecturers in their offices. Would you? Everybody was saying, no. Somebody said, why why on earth do you want to do that? You could choose to study not folk tales, but, you know, tales that are literary, and that would be interesting. But obviously there were many people that had already studied it. And I kept saying no. Everybody was saying sorry, until I found one person who told me, well, actually I don't know anything about it, but I can see you are really passionate about it, so go for it and I will try to guide you. It proved really good for me from the point of view of research, but a calamity from the point of view of support, because she didn't give me any support, any advice, no, nothing. And on top of it, I was in a different country by that time. I traveled halfway through to Nigeria. So you have to choose your PhD to coincide with what is on your heart, what is you are passionate about, because that's what you are going to do 24/7 for years. You don't want to do something that is boring, otherwise you drop, like people do. But you have to find a supervisor that is passionate too. And good news, nowadays you don't need to find that supervisor in your own university. For example, I'm co-supervising a student who lives in France. I am in the UK and the first supervisor in Niger. And that works because of electronic devices. We meet on Zoom, on Skype, we email, we telephone, everything is okay. And so you decide and get your PhD approved. Then what is most important next is to start reading. Reading wide around the topic that you have chosen. And a topic that should be not too wide, not too narrow. A topic that has not been plowed by many people, and that's another issue. Don't take something that is like a highway, a motorway. No. Why should you? Research is researching something that is not known. Otherwise, what's the point? Yeah? And research is either something that has been known, but you bring another angle to it, another different way of looking, bringing new stuff into it, or you go for something that is not known. And that's definitely my preferred advice. I enjoyed what I was doing because it was niche. Nobody was doing it. It was fantastic. And looking back over the years now, I defended my PhD in 1974. Looking back, I can see that God had planned it, that now I've become an unmissable person to ask for advice. Because there are not many, in fact, that worked on that. I hope I'd made disciples. But you know, when people want to know something about my topic, they automatically look for me. And most of them don't know me, they just get me on the internet. So it's very, very important that you have the joy when you retire, if you retire, you know, to look at it and say, wow, I've brought something new. I've advanced knowledge. And it's a joy that is really, it's just like having kids. So I advise you that. Yeah. And then we're going to now look at the way we go about researching and then start publishing. But remember, first of all, read. And when you read, you take into account all the languages you can read. Because if you only read in your own language, you are sorry. Because you will have only one library. When I was a student, PhD student, I could read English. And when the others had finished their reading, I still had the whole library, in fact that was even bigger than the French one, to go and explore. And if you read German or any other language, wow, the more the better. So be a student of languages and you add to your wealth of knowledge. See you in a bit.